There was a time when America trusted a certain image without question, a face that symbolized innocence, comfort, and order. That same face would later ignite one of the most intense cultural backlashes of the 1970s, exposing how fragile public morality truly was. Marilyn Chambers was never famous in a quiet or gradual way. Her rise felt like a crack spreading across a polished surface, revealing tension that had always existed beneath it. She was too visible to ignore and too complicated to categorize. What made her story powerful was not shock but contradiction. She became a symbol before she was allowed to fully become a person. Fame arrived early, loudly, and without mercy. When someone is frozen into an icon too soon, they lose the freedom to grow, fail, or change in private. Marilyn's life would become a long struggle between the person she was and the symbol the world demanded she remain, a dream born. Far from the spotlight, before controversy, before judgment, Marilyn Chambers was simply a young girl with ambition. Born in April 1952 in Rhode Island and raised in Connecticut, she grew up in a stable, middle-class home where practicality mattered more than dreams. Her parents lived ordinary working lives, and the entertainment world felt distant and unsafe to them. But Marilyn felt drawn to performance from an early age. At school, she joined cheerleading and drama clubs, discovering the thrill of being seen and heard. These weren't rebellious acts, just early expressions of identity. By her mid-teens, she began modeling, often navigating auditions on her own, driven more by instinct than guidance. These early steps were not glamorous or guaranteed, but they revealed something important. Marilyn was willing to risk uncertainty for possibility. She wasn't chasing fame to shock people. She wanted recognition as an artist, even if she didn't yet know how difficult that path would become. Crossing a line that could not be erased. In the early 1970s, Marilyn moved to San Francisco, a city that offered more freedom but also more risk. Jobs were scarce, competition was fierce, and survival often demanded compromise. One ordinary day, she answered a casting call that promised opportunity. What she found instead was a decision that would permanently define her public identity. Marilyn hesitated, fully aware that stepping into this role would close as many doors as it opened. Yet she also recognized how rare real visibility could be. She negotiated firmly, demanding fair pay, safety, and respect, showing a level of awareness uncommon for someone so young. When the project was released, it didn't just succeed. It exploded into the national conversation at a moment when America was already questioning its values. Marilyn did not simply appear in a controversial film. She became a cultural symbol overnight, carrying a weight no single person could easily survive. Fame as a cage, not a crown. The public response was overwhelming and unforgiving. Marilyn's face became inseparable from moral debates, media outrage, and sensational headlines. What was lost in the noise was her performance, which relied on restraint and emotional presence rather than words. She was judged less as an actress and more as a test case for society's fears. The contradiction deepened when people discovered her earlier commercial modeling work, transforming a harmless past image into a public scandal. Marilyn was no longer seen as a person with choices, but as a symbol to be admired or condemned. This sudden transformation stripped her of privacy and agency. Fame did not open doors to mainstream acceptance. Instead, it narrowed her future. The industry that benefited from her image hesitated to offer her complexity. Marilyn had become unforgettable, yet strangely invisible as a human being. That paradox would follow her for the rest of her life. Fighting to be taken seriously, refusing to surrender to a single label, Marilyn spent the mid-1970s trying to prove her versatility. She turned to live theater, where performance could not be edited or reduced to rumor. On stage in Las Vegas, she worked steadily, earning praise for discipline and professionalism. For the first time, she felt evaluated on skill rather than reputation. Encouraged, she pursued music, recording songs and performing live, seeking creative control over her voice and image. She also chased legitimate film opportunities, briefly coming close to projects that could have shifted her trajectory. But again and again, circumstances outside her control collapsed those chances. Each failure carried a unique cruelty. She had done the work, shown commitment, and still faced rejection rooted in stigma rather than talent. Marilyn learned that trying to escape a label does not guarantee release. Sometimes, effort only exposes how tightly the box has been sealed: ownership, power, and betrayal. One of the most painful lessons Marilyn faced was how little control she truly had over her own image. Projects were re-edited, repackaged, and released without her consent, reinforcing the idea that her body and past belonged to others. Instead of retreating, Marilyn responded strategically, negotiating compensation and visibility, rather than allowing herself to be erased. These choices required emotional resilience, even when they reopened wounds she was trying to close. The industry praised her fame while simultaneously exploiting it. Every attempt to move forward was met with reminders of where she had been. Marilyn was not naive. She understood power dynamics clearly, often better than those who underestimated her. But understanding does not erase harm. Living under constant scrutiny, knowing that any progress could be undone by someone else's decision, created a quiet, lasting exhaustion that would shape her personal struggles in the years ahead. Personal relationships under pressure. Marilyn's private life unfolded alongside public judgment, rarely untouched by it. Her early marriage, formed before fame arrived, ended as her career accelerated in directions neither partner could control. Later relationships blended love with management, ambition, and survival, making it difficult to separate affection from strategy. Over time, emotional strain and industry pressure took a toll. Marilyn struggled with substance dependence, not as recklessness, but as a response to burnout and isolation. Recovery would come later, but not without cost. A relationship formed during that fragile period offered something different: accountability and shared survival. Through sobriety, marriage, and motherhood, Marilyn experienced moments of grounding that briefly softened her past. Becoming a mother reshaped her priorities, forcing her to confront her own fears and limits. Yet even this role did not erase history. It coexisted with it, reminding her that healing is rarely permanent or complete, living as a memory of an era. As decades passed, Marilyn transitioned from active controversy to historical symbol. She was honored, ranked, inducted, and remembered as part of a specific cultural moment. Awards acknowledged her impact, but also quietly suggested finality. The industry that once consumed her now preserved her as legacy. Appearances at conventions and independent projects replaced mainstream visibility. Marilyn accepted this shift with realism rather than bitterness. She understood that cultural memory often outlives personal fulfillment. Yet even in this phase, she resisted disappearance. She explored political expression, made selective film appearances, and corrected public misinformation about her own life. These acts reflected a woman protecting truth rather than chasing relevance. The older she became, the clearer her perspective grew. Fame, she realized, does not fade evenly. It leaves behind echoes that can comfort or haunt. Marilyn lived inside both, the cost of becoming a symbol. Marilyn Chambers passed away in April 2009, just days before her birthday. Her death was quiet, far removed from the noise that once surrounded her name. What remains is not just a legacy of controversy, but a human story about identity, choice, and consequence. Marilyn was not a cautionary tale or a simple icon of liberation. She was a person navigating an unforgiving system that rewards visibility while punishing complexity. Her life forces an uncomfortable question: how often do we reduce people to moments instead of allowing them evolution? Marilyn's greatest impact may lie in that question. She revealed how easily society consumes women as symbols, and how rarely it allows them to age, change, or be forgiven. Remembering her honestly means acknowledging both her agency and the structures that limited it. Fame made her unforgettable, but humanity is what makes her story matter.